Hey, back for a new episode here on the podcast, The Culture Conversation. I'm your host, Twin GQ. Today we're joined by a special guest hailing from Scarborough, Ontario. Ontario's first official poet laureate, the creator of R.I.S.E, my man Randell. What's up, man? Thank you for coming through, bro.
You already know.
It's been a blessing, man. Yeah, man. So today we wanted to kind of focus on, talking a little bit about your story. Mm-hmm. You've been dedicating a lot of your, youth and, adult years to kind of uplifting kids in the community. So we're just going to kind of tap in and, have you share your experience with that.
For sure. Firstly, it's definitely been a journey. And I think for many of us, we have our own journeys we have to, walk and navigate. There's a lot of forks in the road along the way, but I think the forks in the road are lessons that are really, meant to help support, teach, guide us and offer us some wisdom at the end of the day, So, but it's definitely been tough, from being young and dealing with my own issues and whatnot, getting in trouble in school, getting in trouble with the police at a young age. And I think just having a teacher, that grade 8 teacher that I had, who really helped me around the time that I met you at the Y,
Yeah.
I met you at the Y because I went to that school with Jordan and Kevin and those guys, right?
Yeah.
Devo. So, that teacher really opened my eyes to what was possible. And then I think from there going to MT, Mother Teresa, for ball. But I went there for ball, but I left, with a different hat on. And I think that was a really crucial period in my life, just being around certain people, learning certain things. And then the things you learn from basketball that are applicable off the court, also really supportive too. And bigger than that was probably recognizing that I lived in a place in Scarborough with all the challenges, going to a school in Malvern, all the challenges at the school, and just thinking, what could I do to really give back in a way? What could I do to, share the things I've learned and help the next generation not have to go through some of those things. So along the way, I've had my challenges with life and difficulties, but I think more than anything in anyone's journey and anyone's story is, really getting to a place of asking yourself, what is your purpose? Like, what are you here to do on earth? We all have a purpose. We all have something to offer, to give to the world, the gifts, the talents we've been given. And I think it's really important to get to know yourself. And that was a big part of my journey, getting to know myself. But to get to know myself, I had to lose myself to find myself, And I think from there, I just really dedicated myself to community service and giving back. And there's a lot to share, man.
Yeah, it's crazy because we obviously the infrastructure of Scarborough has changed tremendously over the years. So for yourself, like, what was your early upbringing like? Obviously, we talked about sports and being able to go to community centers where we could share a passion like basketball and, socialize with people at our own age group that were going through similar struggles. So kind of talk a little bit about your upbringing and your early influences to sport.
Sport was just a getaway, man. Basketball was always a getaway. Me, the ball, the rim was just an opportunity to kind of let go of the things I was going through. And the community I grew up in OP for a couple of years, and OP was tough. Like, I remember the first day I moved there, there was a violent situation that took place. And I feel like the infrastructure itself wasn't necessarily conducive. Like many of us who made it out, it's kind of like the roses that grew from concrete, We had to find a way, even when we weren't supposed to thrive. We found a way to overcome, to bloom and blossom in some way, shape, or form, So, Scarborough's changed in many different ways, but I'm really grateful for having community centers, having the Y. Like the Y was huge for me, man. Like although I actually never had a membership. I never had a membership.
Yeah.
But I just found a way to get in because I needed to be there. I needed to make certain connections and learn certain lessons.
Yeah.
Having those mentors who was coaching us and playing ball. But I really attribute a lot of my growth to opportunities in Scarborough. And because of what those opportunities provided me, that's essentially why I'm like, I got to do this too. There's another, I was telling you earlier, there's another Randell and there's another Hussein. And if I could provide an opportunity, I think there's something really powerful about that. You know what I'm saying? And just really being able to create some sort of foundation for another generation to grow
Absolutely.
out of.
And I feel like paying it forward is, our dues that we pay. You get what I'm saying? Because, we had our forefathers or, the community leaders that kind of invested their time and their service for us to not go down the same path that they did. So I feel like with community service, especially, through sport, I feel like that's my connection to, giving back to a community. You do it through art,
Exactly.
right? So it's like you said, finding your purpose and your way to kind of express yourself and, just kind of teach lessons to these guys, because although they are surrounded by, negativity, drugs, poverty, you got to really find, like you said, the seed of opportunity in your challenges. And figuring out a way to kind of rise above that.
Exactly.
So we're going to really talk about your influence of, art. Where did that come from at a young age?
I always loved writing. When I was young, even when I was in grade 1, I remember just writing and journaling more than anything. And so basically what happened was I found poetry through, I got kicked out of my school the very first day of grade 8. The principal found out that I moved to a new neighborhood. I was probably one of the more troubling kids in the school. So she found that out early, and she transferred me from GB Little and I went to Henry Hudson. And that was a blessing in disguise, man. That teacher, she had a record of all the things I'd done, all the challenges, all the arrests and everything. And instead of judging me, labeling me, she gave me a pen. She asked questions. She said, tell me your story. Gave me a pen, gave me a paper, and I was able to really tell my story. And I remember reading the poem and just like, damn, like this is amazing. I couldn't even believe that I went through this stuff at one point, And I think art, and something I've been saying is like, the pen helps you tell the story, but the paper listens. And for the first time, the paper was the first thing that ever listened to me, because I was a bad kid. So nobody wanted to hear me out, And when you're that kid, you're the one that is often labeled and sometimes demonized. And so that teacher, that paper, that pen was my first start into poetry and writing. And I think I dropped it because of ball, and I picked it back up again in grade 11 after I did make the team in grade 11. And so that's when I got back into poetry. I found another passion. I kept playing ball, but just not in school. And yeah, the sky, things really kind of started to take off. I put it down again, but art has been that way. Art helps us tell our story, helps us kind of deal with trauma, challenges, things like that. So yeah, and it's been a very powerful journey with art ever since.
And it seems like it's more of, when I guess I get this vibe when I see your videos, it's more like therapeutic.
Very much so.
You really share and, a state of vulnerability, which I think is commendable. But also, just tapping into your soul. You know what I mean? So I feel like the power of words are very important, especially, like I said, when you're used to being around people that, are not conscious about, negative self-talk. And when you're around people that are not abundant,
exactly,
they place their projections onto you.
Absolutely.
So sometimes being around an abundance or people that speak highly about themselves, that kind of translates to you. And we talk about, your events you do with R.I.S.E, and, I've seen sometimes I'm not my struggle. So talk about the importance of, really championing that message for the future generation.
I mean, words are powerful, words are very powerful. And something, the reason why I really love poetry is because you get to create realities with words. You get to create a reality of your own experience, your own lived experience, or even if not that, just an opportunity to reflect on what you've been through. So when I think about like the quote, I am not my struggles, it's a reminder to even the 13-year-old me, the 16-year-old me, the 19-year-old me, just going through different periods of challenges in my life, where I just recognize that just because you go through this thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that's who you are, or that you don't have to be defined by that thing. If anything, those things can help build you. They can prepare you for the next journey. So, just the I'm not my struggles is just a reminder to us all, an affirmation to us all to reclaim our words. Like, as you know, life and death can be found in the tongue. And so I think it's important for a lot of us to be very mindful of the words, even in our minds, what I'm saying, the internal conversation we have inside of our heads, and especially what you speak, so that's poetry is cathartic. And I think it's just important for us to recognize just like the opportunity we can have to create and recreate our realities with our words.
Yeah. So with R.I.S E, obviously, you know, you started that in 2012. So where has the time kind of went? Like from when you started it, what was that process of culminating an arts organization for the youth, creating a safe space? Like, what was that like trying to put it together at that age?
It was hard, bro. It was hard, but beautiful. And I think nothing, greatness doesn't come out of ease. You know, greatness actually comes like that phrase, pressure builds diamonds. And so I remember when I first got started, the first group of people I wanted to build with, they weren't down. The second group, they weren't serious. The third group, they weren't serious. But when you have a vision, you really have to pull through with your own vision, because you can't see my vision. I can't see yours. It's your vision. You know what I'm saying? So I had to just keep pushing and keep recognizing that I don't see it physically manifested, but I seen it in my heart. I seen it in my spirit. And there's a quote that says, faith is taking the first step without seeing the mountain ahead. So you know you're going to get to the top of the mountain, but you have to take that first initial step. You have to take the risk, you know? So really building it was like just learning, getting some mentorship from, mentors I've had like Mark Stoddard and a bunch of different individuals who just wanted to help me build the vision. But the challenges were just around being a leader and learning how to navigate a team. I'm a leader that often is a leader by example, but to delegate had its challenges, not having the money to do it. But the beautiful thing is, I think when you're following your purpose, the universe will literally bend down to ensure you get to where you need to get to, because the universe is ensuring that we're doing what we need to do, And so despite the challenges, it made things more worthwhile, you know what I'm saying? Because after I overcame one hurdle, I'm like, man, I could keep doing this,
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, in terms of building an arts organization, it requires a lot of consistency. The one thing is to being consistent. We did that every Monday, and then we meet on Tuesdays and Sundays. And, I became R.I.S E. I did R.I.S E. And I think when it comes to also building an arts organization, is just understanding the need. Anything we do in life, something I did is something called design thinking. And design thinking is about, we often want to create solutions, we want to change the world, but in order to change the world, you have to really learn to love the problem. I think it's important that you learn to love the problem, who's impacted by the problem, how people are impacted, who benefits from the problem, what the problem is, like really getting to the root of the problem. Because I think once you get to the root of it, what you're really able to do is create a solution that's long lasting, a solution that you've done your research, you've done the work behind it. So that's why I think it was able to sustain, because I went to the community and I said, yo, what do you guys need? What's safe space look like for you? And so that's why people still mess with it, because it was created with all of us in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So obviously now you've identified enormous amount of partnerships, Manifesto, the City of Toronto, University of Toronto. So how does that process look like when you're identifying partners to kind of, come on board and support what you're doing? And how do you know that if it's, it's genuine and it's not just to kind of check off a box?
That's a very good question. I think when it comes to partnerships, it's probably even important to create a partnership manifesto. As far as an organization, these are our values, our vision, our mission. This is what we're looking to do. This is where we're looking to go. And in doing so, really creating a partnership manifesto as far as we'll partner with an organization if this, if that, if this.
Okay.
And if it doesn't follow that criteria, then, you scratch it.
Okay.
And not every opportunity is the right opportunity either. So when it comes to partnerships, just really doing your research, doing your due diligence, but also understanding it's a partnership. What do you get out of it and what are you putting into it as well too? And so that's really important. And I think the last thing is I made a lot of mistakes making partnerships where people were benefiting more than we did. But at the same time, I learned from those lessons. I learned from the people who took advantage of what we were doing. That's their karma. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's their karma
absolutely.
At the end of the day. I just stick to what I know best and what I do best. And then always just making sure that you cover your bases, like do it right. Do it right the first time.
Absolutely.
Get it in writing,
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And, especially when you've put down the groundwork to build a reputable brand, right? You don't want to just kind of throw that to the side because, you know, you made a decision with a partner that doesn't really fit,
Exactly.
you know, and it's kind of off brand. So, you know, now that you're in a position where you're working, you know, with Ontario, on the poet side, kind of just talk a little bit about what the roles and responsibilities are for you going forward.
Well, the Poet Laureate of Ontario is the first one. So it's actually very interesting because I have this opportunity to create what it can look like.
Congratulations, by the way. That's big.
Man.
That's
Thank
big,
you,
bro.
man. Appreciate that. Yeah. Every day it's, shoot, I'm the Poet Laureate of Ontario, you know? But I think it's beautiful because the idea is I get to create what the legacy of it looks like. I get to work with them and collaborate on building it.
Nice.
They trust me, you know? So at the end of the day, there's a lot of freedom, a lot of free reign to make some things happen. But on the day-to-day, there's a lot of, you know, just a lot of calls, managing the website. I've been working with a lot of other Poet Laureates across the province because I'm the Poet Laureate of the province, but there's Poet Laureates in different cities and townships. So I've been connecting with them just to, you know, get some ideas about how I can support. I don't know what's going on in Cobourg. I don't know what's going on in Kingston. So if that's the case, let me talk to you, figure what's going on, and then, you know, see what we could do to at least bolster poetry in that community, right? And I guess, like, really in addition to that, there's been a lot of people reaching out to do stuff. And so it's interesting because, again, about partnerships, it's understanding the angle with which everyone's trying to come at. But my main thing is elevating the profile of poetry, poets, and artists in the province, and really doing what I can to work with different ministries, work with different organizations to ensure whether it's funding, whether it's opportunities, whether it's creating the opportunities that, you know, at the end of the day that they exist, you know, because for me, also the color of my skin, sometimes we got to work a little harder, you know, to be in these positions. So I want to make sure by the end of the 2 years, like, people are like, damn, you did all that in 2 years. Like, that's really the goal, you know, with all humility. Legacy, man. Like, that's all it comes down to, legacy, you know, just making your mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in a space where there's not a lot of representation, you know, it's of us to take that pride and really kind of use it. You know, we're in this position for a reason, you know, we got to, like, plant our seeds for our flowers to grow. You know, so can you kind of, like, describe the artist landscape in Toronto? How do you feel the landscape is in comparison to other cities out there in Canada?
Well, first things first, I'll speak on some of the positives because we're one of the only, in Canada, we're one of the only countries, and I think in Toronto, we have one of the largest arts councils in Toronto and in Canada. So to have an arts council that you can apply for money as an artist is a great thing. Because in the States, that's not necessarily so. You got to get a sponsor. And it's business relationship, you know, where they're benefiting. Don't get me wrong, this is still a business relationship because it's a transaction, right? But it just has a different guise behind it. So I think in Canada and Toronto, we have a really beautiful opportunities. We just don't have the infrastructure. So I also sit on the Toronto Music Advisory Committee. And so I get to kind of understand what's happening with music specifically in the province, and obviously poetry as well. And so I just think we're kind of behind because there's something lacking when it comes to the number of, like, I got, you know, a couple of my friends are in the industry, Toby, Lou. They're in LA, you know what I'm saying? And these are people who are really talented, but there's too many gatekeepers here in this country and in this city. The other challenge about it is we talk about, like, hip hop does numbers, you know, hip hop does numbers. R&B does numbers, but the problem is we live in a market that is more folk music, more country music, you know, and so sometimes it holds us back from really being able to monetize and capitalize on the opportunities. But I do think every year there's at least one out of the city for the past 5 years that's, like, coming up and making it, you know, from Toronto too. A lot of surprising people out there, like, really killing it right now, you know. So I feel good about it for the future. But I think we, as people who are in the music industry, like myself, we really have to do our part to build, to break down the gate, and then open the gate and just say, yo, come through, you know what I mean? Because some people just want to say, nah, like, only these guys, but why not?
For sure.
You know, in the States, there's artists in the States making $1 million that you and I have never heard of.
Yep.
You know, but why can't we do it here?
Yeah, and you know, you look at Atlanta as I'll use a prime example there, where you can have Little Baby, Gunna, you know, Young Thug, Future, and all of them are collaborating on projects, and they're getting in-house producers and you know, underground artists, and that is, you know, a thing. It's normalized. Whereas you know, here, like you said, it's a specific group. Yeah. Right. So, you know what? It comes back down to having the right leaders at the table. Exactly. Right. And having yourself on the Arts Council and, you know, the Music Advisory Board, you're doing the part, right? But we need more of Randells out there, you know. So, you know, future going forward, hopefully things will kind of change that way, because I feel like, especially with, you know, the entertainment scene going crazy the last 5 years, you know, we shouldn't only have 2 top artists and then all these other underground artists are just, you know, not even, you know, being heard. Exactly. You get what I'm saying? Exactly. Because, you know, you and I probably know a lot of great artists, like you said, just never ever get, you know, the opportunity to kind of showcase their skills, you know? So going forward with, you know, music, what are some things you would like to see in the industry?
Yeah, I'd like to see, as you said, more of us work together, you know, because I remember going to Atlanta, bro, and the Southern hospitality is real, man. I went there for a music conference, the A3C festival. And you could see like there's a certain camaraderie, you know, people just really coming together to support each other. And so, you know, that's this generation in Atlanta, but there was The Brat, there was Jermaine Dupri, there was Usher, there was Outkast. So they were all working together. Janelle Monáe, they're all working together too. And they're all from Atlanta, you know, but I think something about the city here, and I hear about it, not just in the arts sector, is we're kind of divisive in the city, you know? It's like, you're over there, I'm over here, you know? And I think one of the challenges with that is that we don't get that far, you know? There's an African proverb that says, you know, if you walk alone, basically says, if you walk alone, you'll get there. But if you walk together, you'll get further. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's what we need in the city. We just need to find more ways to collaborate. And that's why organizations like R.I.S.E are really important, because it at least puts artists in the same room, at least puts artists on the same radar with one another. And so that's what I really would like to see. One, us working together more. 2, I think corporations could really benefit, you know, from supporting artists. And so, you know, my booking agency, really what I'm trying to do is connect artists to different companies and organizations where they can really make money, not just $100 or like $500 for performance, but they can make some better money
to support themselves,
you know, create content creating, you know, so that's what I'm really working on doing myself, just so artists aren't relying on just the music to make money, but they can build a brand behind them, have the marketing behind them, so that they can at least, you know, really break ground.
Yeah, so obviously all the immense success that you've accumulated thus far, do you ever feel like there's like a pressure on you to be like, you know, the savior per se? Or, you know, sometimes you feel like, damn, like there's pressure on me to really change things, you know, given there's only one of you. So it might take more than one of you to change problems like you discussed. But how do you feel? Do you feel like sometimes you have that, you know, that weight on your shoulder to kind of take a lot of people to the promised land?
The pressure is interesting. You know, the pressure is interesting because I recognize the pressure that's been put on me. So I do my best not to own this pressure, you know, because it's how other people see me and what they think I can do for them, you know? So when it comes to the pressure, I do feel it sometimes, especially because I wear different hats. At the same time, as I said earlier, pressure builds diamonds, and this opportunity, the pressure that I feel and face, it's only going to make me a better person. It's going to make me stronger and wiser. So I welcome the pressure. You know, I welcome it with open arms. But I also recognize the pressure is not it's like self-inflicted. You know, it's up to me if I listen to it. It's up to me if I think that it's daunting. But I'm no one's savior. I'm here to do what I was brought here to do. And whoever benefits along the way, great. And if whoever doesn't, that's great too, because there's someone else that's there to help. But I'm no one's savior, you know, and I think I had to realize that for myself. You can't help everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah. So how do you, you know, what advices do you give to the future generation of youth that, you know, was just like you at 13, you know, is kind of stuck in a transition of figuring out what your life purpose was? How do you find yourself at that age with not so much resources around? What advice would you give to him?
The first thing that comes to mind is understand the hardships are not happening to you because of you. They're not happening to you because you deserve or because you did anything bad. You know, like the hardships I went through wasn't because I was a bad person. You know, you don't go through hardships because you're bad. Hardships don't discriminate. You know, adversity doesn't care how much money you have in your pocket. Hardship and challenge don't care if you're a good person or if you're nice to your mom. Like, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't care. At the end of the day, it's going to happen. And the advice I would give is if it's inevitable, if you're going to face hardship anyways, what can you learn from it? How can you grow? How can you be a better person? You know, because what I feel like the hardship does, you know, if you take a tree, for example, right? Or we take this, let's say this chair, even this table, you know, this table that we're looking at, this table right here, before it was what it was, this table was a tree that needed to be cut. And that tree got cut and then it got carved and then it got molded and then it got sanded down. But eventually, you know, it has its purpose right now. And I think for many of us, you know, we have to get cut sometimes in life. Sometimes you get cut down, but you refine your purpose somehow, some way, because, you know, hardship is just one of those things that we have to learn to embrace. You know, that's the first piece of advice I would give. The second piece of advice is never take anything personal. You know, at the end of the day, people are going to project their own things onto you, but you can't take that personally, because I think a lot of people take it and then they wear it, and you don't necessarily have to do that. The third piece of advice I would say is that don't be defined by the hardships that you go through. You know, they don't define you at all. And then the fourth thing I would say is really about understanding your legacy, understanding that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. You know, tomorrow could be the day. So what can you do today to really make the most of the day? What can you do to leave an impact on the world, that when you are no longer here, that the world can say, I got to benefit because that person was alive, you know? And the last thing I'll share is just around mindfulness, you know, being mindful. And mindfulness to me is just about the idea of being present in the moment and being present to a situation that's taking place. And so there's a coach, a mindset coach that his name is Jim Quick. And so he coached someone like Will Smith. Nice. And he asked Will Smith, what's your question? Like, everyone has a question, you know what I'm saying? Your question for why you wake up in the morning, for why you get excited about doing something, for what keeps you up at night. You know what I'm saying? Everyone has their question for what keeps them going. And so Will Smith's question was basically around the ideas, how can I make this magical moment more magical? That was his question, because he recognizes the moment itself is magical, but I can add my own magic to make it magical as well too. And so it really makes me think about a guy like Will Smith, because he was explaining that Will Smith is, yes, he's the star on the movie, but behind the scenes, he's the guy bringing donuts, bringing water, taking care of the janitors, asking everyone, are you okay? How can I help? You know, that's his way of bringing more magic. But everyone has their own question. And I think the piece of advice is find your question. You know, find that question that keeps you going every day. My question personally is, what kind of ancestor do I want to be? You know, because one day I know I'm not going to be here. One day I'm going to pass. And my question is, what kind of ancestor do you want to be? You know, how do you want your great great grandchildren to look at your life and what you did while you were alive? So that's my question. And that's the 5 pieces of advice I would give to the young generation coming up, because I know they got it a little more difficult, you know, easier in some ways, but difficult in other ways than we did, you know. I can't imagine growing up, you know, right now around COVID and can't go to school. What?
Yeah, that was no. Socialization, we'll be going through it. God, no YMCA. Oh man,
I can't even imagine that. Bro. That just the thought alone hurts. So I give it up to them, because I think, you know, these young people are also built a lot of resilience, you know, through this time, hopefully through this time too. So, but yeah, man, there's so much more I would say, but, you know, just leave it to that 5.
Yeah, for sure. It's dope. I actually want to ask you like one last question in terms of like R.I.S E, like if you can, you know, if you have any upcoming projects that we should be on the outlook for, you can kind of share it like that, or you know, if you have anything that you want to kind of promote or whatever, you gotta in your mind.
Definitely. I mean, essentially, if there's any artist or any, you know, parents or brothers, family members, friends who know artists, just know there's a weekly platform that we have every Monday night. Right now it's on Zoom, but every Monday night we have something going on. And it's an opportunity to just express, you know, do what you do. But a major thing that I'm kind of excited about is we're working on next year's our 10-year anniversary. So we're working on a 10-year documentary.
Wow,
And this is just
congratulations.
really to, just highlight the work that's been done over the last decade. And that's really exciting. I got to say, that's really exciting. Yeah, there's a lot going on with R.I.S.E, man. We another project I'm happy to talk about just because, some of the work we're doing is really dope. So with art and poetry and music, there's an opportunity to really create educational opportunities, right? And educational resources. So we're working with this company to really help young people learn more about the law through art. So, Jay-Z had 99 Problems that taught you, if you got pulled over, how to navigate getting pulled over. And so just looking to create music like that, poems like that can help teach young people about the law. Because for me, I only learned about the law after I got involved in the law. And most people, you only learn about the law after you get caught up in it.
Okay.
No one really, what's the law? I don't want to get arrested. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work like that, It should, but it doesn't work like that. So that's a project I'm really excited about because it would have been something the 12-year-old Randell could have really benefited from. You know? So
lesson learned though.
Lesson learned, man. And I think, again, me going through the police and the criminal justice system is what allows me to do things like this and go back and speak. So I don't regret anything I've been through in my life, man. And I don't think we should live a life where we regret because, what you go through is it happens for a reason.
Absolutely. Well, to everybody out there, I want to personally take the time to, commend you and salute you for your continuous work throughout the communities. And like I said, you have inspired me to do my part in my community through sport and mentorship. And, like I said, there's other kids out there that needs to be active in the community. So I just wanted to say for you, you're an inspiration, bro, and just keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate that, man.
For sure. So we're going to be checking out and just tell everybody where they can follow you at on social media.
Sure, for sure. You can follow me at Randell Adjei. Everything's Randell Adjei, RANDELLADJEI. And you can also follow me on our new Poet Laureate website. It's called OntarioPoet.org. So you can check that out. Some of my poetry is on there too. You can find out a little bit more about the position and whatnot.
Yeah. You can get a spoken word real quick. You got something in the bag?
Sure, I got something. Just trying to think of what would be the best. Just trying to pull a little piece of something. I'll do. There's so many. There's a few I'm thinking about. I'm just trying to decide which one I do.
Yeah, no worries.
Sure, I'll do this piece. If you walk the mile in my shoes, my souls can never be defeated. I've got New Balances, they can't tie me in a race. I stand tall while they stay seated. I'm 10 toes down above these concrete streets, reaching for higher feats, cause I know I'll meet death again soon, but much later. My mother resurrected this rotten apple, and my poetry and I are the fruits of her labor. These lines are praiseworthy, but all praises are due to the woman on the other side of the umbilical cord who birthed me. She gave my souls a new journey, a new path. So I right the wrongs in my past to evolve, to become better than my dad. Cause every day I pray to evolve so my legacy lives on beyond my time here on earth, to inspire truth with my words. Cause I've seen too many pupils die late or die too early. The system has cataracts in need of surgery. If I ruled the world, I'd set it free, eradicating tyranny, abolishing the fear of world peace. Cause some rich folks fear giving up a piece of the pie. Like Boys in the Hood, we die to get there when they drive by. We get the rear view in hindsight, cause black murder is always sour in the limelight. Appreciate that, man.
Peace and love. You got it right there, Randell. Man, that's crazy. So we definitely gonna tap in. Next episode is the season finale. Be sure to subscribe on all platforms and to get exclusive content and first access to this spoken word, subscribe. So checking out Twin GQ with Randell. Peace.